If he so decides under the directorship of the new king, which is the guy we need access to, he can fucking shut that shit down very quickly. That's why it's so imperative that the Boera need to make concessions with this type of person.
Dingane lost the war at the Blood River Battle. His eventual successor, his half-brother Mpande, joined forces with the Voortrekkers and went to war against Dingane and drove him across the Pongola River. And as a reward, there was a very good relationship between the Voortrekkers and King Mpande.
Video, he's discussing his upbringing, and he says, look, he only went to grade 4. He learned how to write, he was pulled out of school, and he's trained to be a soldier. That's how he became the leader of the Amabuto, which is the Zulu regiments. So this guy asked him, now your kids, because he's got about 8 children, do they go to school? So he says, yeah, they go to school, but I don't know what for. Like so many of the kids in South Africa, we're telling them go to school. These other idiots are rioting in the streets for fees must fall. They're rioting for an education for what? Because once they complete that education, there's no work. So when you're asking government to pay for your university studies and when you're saying kids must go to school, what for? He says, in our day, when I was their age, I didn't even need an education. I was just sitting here at home and they would come and fetch us for work. We didn't have to look for work. The work was looking for us. He said whether there was a job in Cato Ridge, Imakepa is the name of Cato Ridge, we'd go there and work. As soon as we got back, they said, here, there's another job, Ichoin, which is like a shutdown or some form of project that was happening like at ISCO and you know those type of companies. He said they'd come and fetch them and then they say here's another job in Point in Durban. As they get back, they're like, hey, we've got another job. We need people in Van der Bijl Park. The fact that you didn't even have an education didn't matter because there was so much work that you were never without a job. And he says as a result, Emakaya, which is the homesteads and the rural areas, nobody was without work. They could get money, they could buy food, they could support their families. Now, he says there's youth that are running around there causing big shit and causing problems because there is no work for them. So he says when you're saying people must get educated, what must they get educated for if there's nothing waiting for them on the other side of that education? Then he says Uhulumeni, which is the president. And this guy asked him, what advice would you give to the president? He says, no, I'm not going to talk about another man because if he was in front of me here, the stuff that I would say to him, you won't believe about your president. He's not my president. My leader is the king and the king is dead. That's who I follow. I don't follow this government and I don't follow this president. Your president promised you guys jobs. He came here and he told people that gunamalungelo, which means they have a right. He said he came here and he told people they have a right to land. And now they think because they have this right to land, they can sit on their asses and do fuck all. But do you blame them? Because there is no work. The second video, he says, this government of yours came here and said, Abantu banamalungelo. He says, we came from a time where we didn't have to fight for employment. We didn't have to cry for employment. There was too much employment. We were hiding away from the jobs the way there was so much work so that we could be home with our families. But he says, now your president has come here and he tells people, no, don't worry about work. You have a right to land. Amalungelo. He says, as a result, they came here, they said, no, we've got a right to this land, and they chased away the whites. So he's referring specifically to the white farmers who used to farm in the Natal Midlands, in the Highveld, Josini Dam, Tugela Ferry, along the banks of the Tugela River, in sugarcane land, some of the most arable land in the country. And he's saying, your president and your government came here and told people you've got a right to land. Now they claim their right to land, forcing and fighting and threatening the white people. The white people are gone, and so is the work. And he says when white people were here, we had food that we were given for free. The fresh produce of the farms was given for free to the people in the rural areas because they were the people who worked on the farms. So everyone that worked on the farm got their own parcel monthly of fruit and veg and fresh produce. He said we had meat, we had animals that the farmers would give us on a monthly or annual basis. We had no shortage of anything and nobody was complaining. But your government came in, told all these people that they've got a right to land. Now we've got people coming from Zimbabwe and from all over the fucking place to claim ancestral land. Then he says, what shit is that? This land was fought for by the Zulus and won by the Zulus. It's our land. But you've told people they have a right to the land, and as a result, they don't want to work. They've just taken from the white farmers, and now everyone is starving. They've got no jobs. There's no more fresh produce. There's no more food, and and all they're doing, this youth, is they're raping people repeatedly. So he uses rape as an example. He says, "Agnam teto." There is no more law. It's complete lawlessness, where people can rape and rape and rape repeatedly. They don't go to jail. They don't get punished. Why would you expect the white farmers to stay here when they're at risk of being raped? Their wives, their children could get raped. They could get killed on their farms. He said they took their money and they fucked off. They gave you this land that you said you have a right to. And now what do you have? You've got no job. You've got no fresh produce. You've got no food. And the place is falling apart. Now he says, we as Amabuto living in these rural areas, we are the people that they come to for protection from these criminals and thugs and all this influx of people that haven't got jobs. Youth leave here, they go to the big cities, they find no fucking work. They come back here, and what do? They drink, they fucking rape. They commit crimes because everybody's stealing from everybody. So he says to this boy, don't tell me about your president. That's not my president. He's put you people in a hole and he's fucked your lives up, and you don't even realize it. So basically, Kilichi has been very vocal about the Ingonyama Trust, which is the land of the Zulus. When the king died, he did an interview on ENCA where he said, just because the king is dead, don't think that we will stop honoring his wishes. And he was very clear about the Ingonyama Trust. He said this land belongs to the Zulu people and will not be touched. And he said, as Amabuto, as Zulu warriors, we fought and died for this land. My ancestors under Shaka Zulu conquered all of these other tribes and made them Zulus and took over Zulu land. Therefore, if somebody wants to come and take the land away from us, we're not going to respond to constitutions. We're not going to respond to land redistribution. If you want the land, you can come and fight for the land. And if they change the law and say that this land now comes under custodianship of the state, no problem. Come try and take it. We'll fucking show you what we do. So this guy, because he is so powerful and he leads an army essentially of about 300,000 Zulu warriors, besides under the directorship of the new king, which is the guy we need access to, he can fucking shut that shit down very quickly. That's why it's so imperative that the Boer need to make concessions with this type of person. This guy is very vocal about the fact that you think you're free and you've got freedom, but your life is actually shit. I've grown up here. I'm 70 years old almost. And in my time on this earth, my life is worse under your government. It was much better under the white people because we had food, we had jobs, we had security. Now we've got lawlessness, we've got no jobs, unemployed youth, a rape epidemic in Makaya, like in the homelands, and crime that's out of control. What the fuck for?
A person called Sipepu tried to become the king of the Zulus, but he was not the first in line. And he decided to kill all the sons of the king, all the sons of King Cetshwayo. And eventually a person called Dinizulu, who was actually the rightful person to succeed King Cetshwayo, his uncle decided to hide him so that they do not kill him. And but he was discovered, and he spoke to two farmers from the Port Petersburg area to come and fetch Dinizulu and hide him and keep him until he's grown up. That they did, and then when he was grown up, then they decided to establish a commando consisting out of 100 voortrekkers to go down and enter into a war with Sipepu, who wanted to become the king. They joined forces with an army of the Zulus and eventually won the war against Sipepu. And then they anointed Dinizulu to become the king of the Zulus. By this action, they secured the existence of the Zulu royal house because Dinizulu was the rightful person to become the king of the Zulus. But in exchange for the voortrekkers having saved the royal house, an area around the present-day Vryheid town was given to the voortrekkers. It was about 1.3 million hectares big, and that area was called the New Republic, the Nuwe Republiek. And that was given to the voortrekkers in exchange for their services to save the royal house of the Zulus.